I think he's on the whole rather unattractive man. You ought to, I know, because then you'd have more. I certainly write about him with more feeling and more kindness, probably.
Well, I think you did in Casino Royale.
Do you?
Yes.
Well, yes, he had some emotions at the end when the girl died, but that...
well, that's all right. A man in his job can't afford tender emotions.
Well, that's what I feel.
He feels them, but he has to quell them.
Yes. On the other hand, Philip Marlowe feels them and speaks about them. He may speak about
he's always
something.
confused.
He is, isn't he?
He's like me.
But, for instance, I managed to get hold of an advanced copy of your last book, the one that's just coming out, Playback. And I was very interested by this passage, talking about violence and, toughness and so on and so forth. This seemed to me very well put. He's gone into this girl's bedroom, having overheard her conversation with a blackmailer. She brought out a small automatic up from her side. I looked at it. Oh, guns, I said. Don't scare me with guns. I've lived with them all my life. I teased on an old Derringer, single shot, the kind the riverboat gamblers used to carry. As I got older, I graduated to a lightweight sporting rifle, then a 303 target rifle, and so on. I once made a bull at 900 yards with open sights. In case you don't know, the whole target looks the size of a postage stamp at 900 yards. A fascinating career, she said. Guns never settle anything, I said. They're just a fast curtain to a bad second act. I think that's well put. But you see, that is a far more sort of sensible point of view than the one which I put forward in my books, where people are shooting each other so much and so often that you often need a program to tell who's in the act and who's the spectator.
Why do you always have to have a torture scene?
Well, do I always? Yes, let me think now.
Yes,
well, I'll
do.
tell you, well, maybe you're right.
Every one that I've read.
Really? Well, you see, I suppose I was brought up on Dr. Fu Manchu and thrillers of that kind, and somehow always, even in Bulldog Drummond and so on, the hero in the end gets in the grips of the villain, and he suffers. Either he's flogged or something happens to him.
Well, next time, try brainwashing. That's probably worse than torture.
I think it is, yes. I don't like that. That's too serious. No, I agree. I think it's a weakness. On the other hand, you see, I think this so-called hero of mine, he has a good time. He beats the villain, and in the end, he gets the girl, and he serves his government well. Well, in the process of that, he's got to suffer something in return for all this success. And, what do you do? Dock him something on his income tax? I'm very tired of the fact that the hero in other people's thrillers gets a bang on the head with a revolver butt, and he's perfectly happy afterwards, just a bump on his head. Well, yeah. I think my chap ought to stop.
Oh, that's one of my faults. I recover too quickly.
Well, I know.
Because I know what it is to be banged on the head with a revolver butt. The first thing you do is vomit.
It is,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there you are. See, that's already getting violent and unattractive and so on.
Yes.
The truth is like that, you see. And while I think it's certainly a criticism of my books that it comes in too often, I think my so-called hero has got to suffer before he gets his prizes at the end of the book.
Yes, he's going to suffer a little, that's true.
Yeah.
But...
not too much. Well, he doesn't get hurt in the next book, which I've just written. Much.
Have you?
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Goldfinger.
Which?
Goldfinger.
How can you write so many books with all the other things you do?
Well, I sit down and I have 2 months off in Jamaica every year. That's in my contract with the Sunday Times. And I sit down and I write a book every year during those 2 months. And then I bring it back. I
can't write a book in 2 months.
Well, but then you write better books than I do.
Well, maybe or maybe not, but I still can't write a book in 2 months. The fastest book I ever wrote, I wrote in 3 months.
Yes. Well, Seamanall writes them in about a week or 10 days.
Mm-hmm. And so could Earl Stanley Gardner.
Yes.
In fact, Edgar Wallace.
Yeah.
You know the story about Edgar Wallace going to Hollywood. And they asked him if he would write an original story for a screenplay. And they expected him to take about 6 weeks. This was on a Friday. He was back on Monday with it finished.
Well, I hope they paid him for the whole 6 weeks.
Well, I think it's a flat sum.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. But your man, your hero, Philip Marlowe, is he based on more or less on yourself, so to speak? I mean, I see a certain, in fact, I see a distinct relationship between you and Philip Marlowe.
Oh, not deliberately.
No.
But if so, it just happened.
One writes what one knows, of course. Well, my chap, I suppose he's got some foibles that I've got, but I wouldn't have said he had any relation to the person I think I am, but there it is.
Can you play baccarat as well as he can?
Not as well, no. I'd like to be able to. I love it. I love gambling.
Oh. I don't enjoy gambling at all. It's the only vice I don't possess.
Oh, come. There are plenty left, aren't there?
Well, it is the only vice I don't possess. I have no interest in gambling.
No. Would you say that there are any sort of basic differences between the English and the American thriller?
Oh, yes. Except for a few exceptions, like... well, I shouldn't say except for a few exceptions. It's a bad tautology, isn't it? Like yourself. And there are a few. The American thriller is much faster paced.
Yes. We've got into a rather sort of tea and muffin school of writing here, I think. The policemen are much too nice and always drinking cups of tea, and inspectors puff away at pipes, and the whole thing goes on in a rather sort of quiet atmosphere, some little village somewhere in England.
Uh-huh.
Now, of course, you've got the private eye tradition, which we haven't got so much over here, because our detectives, private detectives, are on the whole, just ordinary little people who go and